and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dana Devine. Thank you for joining us today on Equal Hope. I'll be with you for the next half hour, sharing pertinent information that will save your life. Equal Hope is a nonprofit organization right here in Chicago, and we're on a mission to eliminate disparities in healthcare right here in Chicago. How are we going to do that? Well, we offer free mammograms, free cervical screenings, free primary care appointments. We can get you into vaccination appointments for HPV, COVID, the flu. We can help you with emergency referrals for food and rent, and all you need to do is give us a call, 312-942-3368, or visit equalhope.org. They're waiting for you. There's a Latina navigation team waiting to help our Latina sisters and navigate them through A to Z. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, woohoo, at equalhope_IL. And if you're a cancer patient, a caregiver, a provider, we have a cancer support resource network right at equalhope.org. Stop by, get some information, share some information. Visit us right now, equalhope.org today. You know, I believe your testimony may be the most important words out of your mouth, the most important story. And with that, I would like to introduce this month's guest. She is a shero, and her name is Zion Banks. She's the manager of external and media relations and public information at Governor State University, and she is a breast cancer survivor. Zion, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Dana.
I am so pleased to have you here with us today because I know you're going to say something that's going to touch somebody watching right now. So we're going to start out right now. Zion, tell us, our audience, a little bit about yourself, and let's go.
Okay. So I am Zion Banks. I consider myself the chief storyteller at Governor State University. I'm a natural documentarian, so no matter what we're doing, I'm documented with pictures and blog posts, and so that's what I do at Governor State. I tell the good news of what we're doing for our students, faculty, and staff. In addition to that, I'm the mother of three girls. I have a bonus son, and Dennis and I have been married for 34 years. That's me in a nutshell.
That's you in a nutshell. She said 34 years, 3 children, 3 girls.
3 girls, 1 bonus son.
And
grandson.
Grandson. All right, so you have a full life, Zion.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Zion, you are a breast cancer survivor.
100%.
100%. How would you define survivorship?
Survivorship. So I guess that starts here, right? That starts with your mentality and how you approach anything. It's your mentality, it's your approach, it's the way you think about whatever it is that you're facing. And so for me, survivorship started with what resources was I going to use? What tools was I going to draw upon? Who was I going to call on to help me get through this journey? It never once occurred to me that I would not make it through the journey. Just how was I going to do it in a way that preserved dignity and pride, and in the end, inspired people. So for me, that was survivorship.
Okay, so you started with journey. Share with us the journey and the beginning of your journey, because I know there's a starting point. You probably have a date and a time when that journey started.
So I would say, and you and I have talked about this a couple of times, I would say my journey really started 20 some odd years ago when my mom died of breast cancer at the age of 57. She was 57 in 2002. That's when she died. And then fast forward 20 some odd years later, I'm diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 57. So in some ways, I kind of felt like it was destined to happen, and I just kind of prepared myself for how was I going to get through it when it did happen. Every single year I went for my mammograms because I had dense breasts. Every single year they called me back for the ultrasounds. Every year I skipped out of there. Nothing, we didn't find anything. Everything is fine. It was great. But then this year, or I should say in 2022, I did the mammogram. They were like, come back, the scan shows something. We think there's something there. So I came back for the ultrasound. The ultrasound did not show anything, ironically. But the doctor was adamant. She was like, I know your breasts. There's something going on. We can see it in the initial mammogram. And so she sent me for several biopsies. But it really wasn't until I got the MRI that they were able to see definitively that I had 9 centimeters of something. They didn't know what it was, but it was a solid 9 centimeters. And then when I went back and did actually the ensuing surgery, it was 2.5 centimeters of cancer. But again, this is 2.5 centimeters of cancer, which is about an inch. And I've been going to the doctor every year, faithfully, year after year. So how was even 2.5 centimeters allowed to grow without being detected?
So your appointment previous to the appointment where you got the diagnosis, how long was that?
A year. I would go faithfully every year.
Every year. But your OBGYN recognized that something looked abnormal
Exactly, in the mammogram.
and insisted on further testing.
Exactly.
Which, I'll just pause right here for a station break, is why having a medical home is so very important. Because your primary care doctor has a baseline to establish when things are not normal. So that they say, well, we saw this, and so this looks different here in 6 months. Oh, this looks different in 6 years, and let's go back and look at how it looked 6 years ago. That is a really good reason to have a primary care doctor, because they can establish your baseline. Okay, so
can I just jump in there for a second?
absolutely.
So Dennis and I have moved 10 times in 20 years. So my medical records are scattered everywhere from Atlanta to LA. So the fact that I have been with my cancer provider, my cancer specialist, for the last 12 years, in and of itself is remarkable. So when she said, I see something, I'm looking at your scans from this year and last year and the year before, she was like, no, something is off here. And so I would really like to do more testing. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the longevity and the consistency of having, she's not my primary care provider, but just the consistency of medical care in my life.
So you were diagnosed by a clinical breast exam.
Exactly.
So, and we definitely advocate self-breast examining. A clinical breast exam, that's your annual appointment that, ladies, you should be making after the age of 40. And your annual screening mammogram. Those are the ways to protect yourself and be proactive. Okay?
Early detection is
Early
key.
detection is key. What was your initial, do you remember, what was your initial reaction? Well, how did you receive that information?
So I went in August for my mammogram. They called me back in September, and it is devastating. I mean, you do experience this sense of overwhelming dread. But then I said, okay, how do we get through this? How do we stage this? How do we treat this? But unfortunately, from September to November, there were so many more tests. There were so many more biopsies because they couldn't really identify what it was, where it was. It took the actual MRI for them to say, okay, this is exactly what it is, and this is where it is. And so initially I was devastated, but I was hopeful and inspired that I could make it to the other side as long as I knew what it was we were dealing with. So I was diagnosed in September. We were scheduled to do a mastectomy in November, but we opted to pull back and to do a lumpectomy instead. But when they went in to do the lumpectomy, they didn't get clear margins in December, so they scheduled me for the mastectomy in December.
Interesting. Have you all noticed that she said we elected? Who is we?
My husband and I.
Absolutely.
It was a family decision. It was a family decision. It's definitely not something I could do on my own.
Right. Well, you knew something about breast cancer because your mother had
Exactly.
breast cancer. Do you feel like you knew enough?
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not, because my mom she experienced it. She took it on pretty much by herself. We didn't have a lot of information. I wasn't in Chicago when she was here, when she was actually battling it, so I did not have enough information. I just knew that my best friend's an oncology rep, and another one of my good friends had also been through breast cancer. So just by virtue of having those close relationships, I knew the questions to ask. I knew somewhat what the treatment process would look like.
Praise the Lord. Let me ask you this. So you had information.
Yes,
Probably had great insurance.
absolutely.
Did you find that there were any barriers initially that you were experiencing after being diagnosed or starting treatment? Did you have any barriers?
So the barriers that I had were more communication. It wasn't, I'm sure that there was implicit bias, but it wasn't overt. I didn't experience it that way. I didn't experience being dismissed. But what I experienced was just being blatantly given the wrong information and then being told I was wrong. So,
Okay, so explain.
So, just superficial stuff like, what day is the surgery? What room is the surgery in? And if I had not known the questions to ask, if I had not known, like, this procedure can't be scheduled in this room because it's too long, it could have been disastrous.
Meaning you would have shown up.
Shown up for surgery on the wrong date, or would the surgeons have performed the wrong procedure? So for me, it was more of a communication information type of thing.
And who dropped the ball with that?
I'm going to say the provider, who I'm not going to name, but is the provider. The other thing that I realized was that Black women die at a 40% higher rate of breast cancer because we're not getting the right tests. We're not getting the right diagnostic tests. So we all get mammograms, which is, I can't emphasize enough that that's critical. Most of us get ultrasounds, but because most Black women have dense breasts, we need a clearer image. We need an MRI, and most of us don't get that. So that could be a barrier.
Barriers and challenges in your cancer treatment into your survivorship. What was your biggest challenge?
Let's see.
Huh?
My biggest challenge,
Repeating something?
memory loss. It was energy. It was energy. I would say that for most people, the chemo it wipes you out. So for me, it was energy. It was not being able to get out and do the things that I had normally, been used to doing. It was not being able to engage with my family and my friends the way that I wanted to.
How many rounds of chemo?
4 rounds.
Look at me. Well, that's not.
It's all relative.
It's all relative.
It's all relative. So for me, that was 4 months that I was in isolation.
So you did it once a month.
And in fact, my last chemo treatment was February 28th, so we have an anniversary coming up.
Of
2023.
Oh.
I finished all of my cancer treatment in August of 2023, and you and I met at the end of August of 2023 to do the radio show.
Oh, wow. So you are a neophyte.
Right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. And, something about those dates. You never forget those dates. All right. So somebody watching right now, looking at you right now, you look like $1 million. You don't look like you've been through what you've been through.
Thank you.
Is there any advice you would give to someone watching who doesn't think they need a mammogram or doesn't even feel like they have a chance of having breast cancer? They're too scared to get a mammogram.
There's so many examples of people I know who have no family history, who've never had any incident of cancer, any kind of cancer, and they came back with positive results. So it's a screening. As we get older, our bodies change, our breasts change. It's a screening tool. You have to take care of yourself. And the best way to prevent cancer is early detection.
Well, you said, you're absolutely right. It's a screening tool. You said your mother passed away at the age of 57.
Exactly.
Were you being advised to screen 20 years prior, which would be age 37, which is really the protocol? if you tell somebody that your mother passed away from breast cancer, I believe the protocol is to screen that individual 20 years prior to
What
that
they told
age.
me was to do the BRCA testing, the genetic testing,
And you did?
and I did. And they said that it was just totally coincidental that my mother had breast cancer, and that I probably would not get it.
So
But
you
then,
did genetically. It wasn't genetic.
but even after I got breast cancer, I went back and did the testing. And I was like, it's just a coincidence. So I would say screen, test, do your mammograms, do your self-checks. But if you have dense breasts, frankly, they're all lumpy and bumpy. So get the mammograms, get the screening tools.
What would you say what advice would you give to someone who is new? Okay, so you are
It's like
brand, welcome to Survivorship.
welcome back to life.
Right.
Yep.
What advice would you give to someone who is newly diagnosed, who just got that news?
You can do this. Cancer does not have to be a death sentence. You can do this, and your journey depends on your mindset. How are you going to get through this? If you're positive and you're moving forward with grace and dignity and faith, you got to pray about it, then you'll be fine. But if you succumb to the woe is me, why did this happen to me, to the victim mentality, it's going to be a hard road to toe. I'm not saying you won't get through it, but it can be so much easier with a positive attitude.
True. However, we know that there are women who are facing breast cancer that don't have support systems, who don't have children at home or a significant other to cook and make sure some of the things that are important to recuperate are being done.
Correct.
How can people support a loved one with breast cancer?
So my heart goes out to those people, to those women who are facing this alone. That I feel like in many ways that was my mother. But there are resources. There's always some family member. There's always somebody on your list of resources that they can reach out to. There are partnerships everywhere. People want to help. People want to support you. So reach out.
Reach out. But your husband, I know that he was a huge, amazing support system for you. And he wrote a poem.
No, he wrote me a letter.
A letter. You don't have that letter with you, would you?
I do not have a letter with me, but he wrote me a letter, yes.
He wrote her. Tell us about this letter.
So the letter that he wrote me was basically celebrating the strength and resilience that he saw in me during the journey. I really think that he was more afraid than I was. There were times that he would just disappear. And I think that he was somewhere trying to pull himself together. And he just wrote me a letter saying, after 33, 34 years, I'm loving you more now than I did before because you've been transformed. So.
Wow. And so you've been transformed. Do you feel like that?
I do. I feel like I'm a new person. I do. I feel like I'm more of who God really created me to be. I feel like I'm walking more in who I was supposed to be anyway. I think that I may have been almost hiding. A friend of mine said, "Oh my God, you finally come out of your shell." We were like, "Shell?" But now I feel like she was right. I never would have come on TV to talk with you. Never.
And you have launched, moved into your destiny even further.
I created a website. It's called Cancer Inspired. And my daughter did not appreciate the title. She didn't think it was eloquent enough, but I thought it was true.
I like the title, actually.
The inspiration that cancer brings. It inspired me to get out there, to walk on the lake every day. It inspired me to embrace my love of fashion. I'm wearing the moda. it inspired me to create the website and to take pictures. The website is cancerinspired.com, and it's really a documentation of all the stages of cancer, from when my hair fell out to when I was too sick to even get up and cook. So it is, and then the stages are all the way, the whole arc from when I was too sick to take care of myself to when I went to Italy with my best friend. So it's a beautiful website, and I want people to look at it and know that they too can do this with grace and dignity. And then two, I want their essays. So a mutual friend of ours, Paula Hanna, submitted an essay which talks about how she had survivor's guilt because she felt like she had cancer one day and the next day she didn't, because she had a double mastectomy, as opposed to the chemo and the radiation and the treatment that continues. I mean, I was in treatment for almost a year.
I think that might be the first time I have heard that term.
She had survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt.
Yeah, and there's a whole essay on my website about it.
And she felt like?
She felt like she had cancer one day, then she had the double mastectomy, and then she didn't have cancer. So she didn't have all the tales about, the nausea from cancer and all the lethargy and the loss of life, because she took care of it with one simple surgery. Not simple, quick.
Well, interesting, because I did a double mastectomy, and I don't know if I had any guilt about it. I just had a praise report. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
We all process differently.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And so
guilt, so that's the word that really distracted me.
She
wow,
said she had survivor's guilt because she survived it and she was able to carry on with her life pretty quickly, as opposed to most people, again, who go through the surgery.
She didn't have chemo.
Nope.
Wow.
I had 25 rounds of radiation.
Wow. Okay, so back to the Cancer Inspired website.
Okay.
What can visitors, is it interactive? What can visitors do on the website?
It is not interactive. We are working on it to update it so that it can be, but what I would love for people to do is to send me their reflections on cancer, or even a loved one who had cancer. I had my daughter write a piece about how she felt when I was diagnosed with cancer, and it's really moving. So just send me your reflections, and I'll put it on the site. And
send it to
zbanks000@gmail.
Da-dun, da-dun. That would be zbanks 007. No, 000.
000.
Why am I 007? Where'd that come from?
You think I'm a spy?
I know. zbanks 000
at Gmail.
All right, and they can submit essays or
just reflections.
Reflections. What are your goals for this website?
To inspire people. I mean, we're being diagnosed at an alarming rate with breast cancer, and I was really close with a young woman that I met because of cancer who was devastated and remained devastated the whole time she was going through cancer. So I'm like, you can do this. It's going to be hard, but you can do this. There's support out there for you. So I want people to look at my website and see that they also can survive cancer in a beautiful way.
I love this so much. I have one more question about change and the difference that today versus yesterday.
Okay.
Did you change anything like dietary, your food?
My daughter just asked me this. So initially I did, but now I'm kind of easing back into my old ways. I've incorporated so much more greenery into my diet, like raw greenery. What I'm doing though is more like cleanses, more colon cleanses, more colonics, just to kind of make sure that I'm moving everything along.
Eliminating, letting it go. You listen, I like I said, I believe your testimony really might be the most important story you ever tell. And if you inspired someone today to just
I did.
Get a mammogram, and if you are a little fearful, maybe not so fearful. And I just want to remind you that Equal Hope will support you with a free mammogram if you are underinsured or uninsured or maybe just unsure, we will help you. And we have a Latina navigation team to support you. The number to call is 312-942-3368, or you can visit equalhope.org. They are waiting for you to show up, and they will help you from A to Z. I want to thank you for joining us today. I have two wonderful quotes that I found earlier. One is from Jenny Small. She said, "Rise when you think you can't, crawl if you can't walk, and try even if you think you'll fail. Life is short, so make it count." That's a quote from Jenny Small. And one more from Eleanor Roosevelt. We've all heard it. Let's hear it again. "Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why we call it the present." Thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. I'm Dana Devine. We are Equal Hope. We'll be back here next month talking about allergies and asthma with Dr. Renee. Thanks for watching and have a great evening. Thank you, Dr. Zion. Thanks for
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.